Steven Stamkos, of course, hurt his tibia early last year or late last year, looking to make a comeback this Saturday in the final game of the NHL portion before the winter break. Of course, the Olympics starting up in a few days. Now, guys, I want to ask you this. If he does play, even if it's minimal, should he be on Canada's Olympic roster?
Absolutely. The athletes nowadays, or maybe I'll go as far as to say NHL players nowadays, are in unbelievable shape. The way he trained before the season, he's working out with Gary Roberts, right, which is probably the best place on earth right now for a guy to go train. This guy is a machine. And so the shape he was in prior to the injury was second to none. And then you see the way he's trained throughout and heard the stories of how he's been able to train. I don't think that guy's going to miss a beat.
He even skated off on a broken leg during that game.
That's the thing. Like he's going to come back, and I think he honestly will be back, not far where he left off. And I think he's so, he's so potent offensively that you can't really give him up.
The only worry for this, now I'm speaking on Tampa Bay's view of things, that he wants to play at the Olympics. That's the only reason why he's likely skating on Saturday. If the Olympics weren't there, he'd probably still be on the injury list until the end of the month. So he's going a little bit rushing things, going to the Olympics. Is he 100%? Only he's going to know that. And
would you take a guy who's like, say, 60 to 70%? Would you still take him?
Yeah, the only bad thing about this, if he goes over and he re-injures or re-aggravates it, something like that, what does that do to Tampa Bay when he comes back?
Well, you know what? The GM is also the
GM
I know.
That's a delicate situation.
With Steve Yzerman. But I'll ask you this. If Stamkos can't go, if they find out that, no, we should rest him, it's not worth it, who replaces him then?
St. Louis.
Yeah, well, see, I would go with Claude Giroux for the simple fact that Giroux's a little younger. Giroux has put that Flyers team on his back and has carried them really for the last month and a half. He's been phenomenal. And St. Louis, the numbers, what has happened to him since he's got snubbed is remarkable. But at the same time, I just like G because he's got the younger legs.
Okay, we'll talk about Thomas Vanek now. The Edmonton Oilers, you don't really get to say this, but they dodged a bullet, and they're relieved. Of course, Thomas Vanek getting that big deal with Buffalo, 7 years, $50 million. Now, he got traded to the Islanders earlier in the season and rejected a large deal, very similar to what he got that he has currently. With that said, where does he end up next season? Because it doesn't look like he's going to be on Long Island anytime soon.
I'm not sure who's going to take a stab at him. It's tough to say. Like he could be an impact player. He's a guy that plays on the edge and he's got skill. But I don't know. Maybe you see him pop over to the KHL or somewhere over in Europe. But I don't think his time in the NHL is done. So. Maybe even a place like Florida or someone like that in the southern market maybe takes a stab at him. I'm not sure.
You also kind of wonder, with the deadline March the 5th, it could be a rental. Could be a rental for somebody going down the playoffs. Could be a good fit for Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh did it last year with Iggy. They might do it with Vanek just to kind of put him over the top. You look at teams like that, maybe the Rangers, maybe even the Flyers take a stab at him. Flyers right now on the outside looking in for a playoff spot. They add him to their lineup up front. That gives you a whole lot of offensive punch.
Well, speaking of the New York Rangers, there's been a lot of trade rumors circulating between guys like Dan Girardi, who hasn't really come to terms with Glenn Sather, the GM of the New York Rangers, in terms of getting that long-term deal. Same thing with Ryan Callahan. So both those guys are kind of being shopped around a little bit. Is that a wise move by the Rangers, and who's more likely to go prior to this Olympic freeze for the trade deadline, or even towards the trade deadline on March the 5th?
Tough call. I think the Rangers are in a weird spot right now where they're kind of, they take 2 steps forward and then a step back every time it seems, and they got the new coach involved, and Rick Nash is putting the puck in the net, and they got some skilled guys. They got some solid D. They got one of the best goalies in the league, no question about that. And it just seems funny that they constantly are battling, and always, they seem to be looking from the outside looking in again this year. And I think they have to make some moves.
Because it sounds like they're only going to be able to keep one of those guys.
Exactly.
It's sad to say, but you keep a stalwart defenseman or your heart of your team in Callahan, right?
Yeah.
Between those two.
You know what? I always like having a good defenseman that you can log a lot of minutes. You know, coaching a team that, a defenseman that logs a lot of minutes. I'm not saying a forward is a dime a dozen, but I'd take a defenseman over a forward anytime if I had to make a choice. And the Rangers are in a tough spot. Are they a buyer or a seller when it comes to the trade deadline? You know, and it's tough because if you're a seller, that means you better get something good in return. A lot of times you don't. A lot of times you're trading and you're getting nothing in return, especially if you're a seller.
Both those guys provide some size and some physicality. Maybe that's something the Montreal Canadiens need because they got pushed around a little bit, taking on the Winnipeg Jets on Super Bowl Sunday, of course, their regular matinee schedule. Now, this was a little controversial. Towards the end of the game, of course, Brendan Gallagher for the Canadiens wanted to actually get up and go on side, but he was prevented by not only their goalie by Winnipeg, but also by a defenseman. Now, there's a lot of talk that Gallagher wanted to skate up but was interfered with, and a few feet away was the referee. Should there have been a call here, or are the Canadiens not justified by what happened? Or was it fair? Was Gallagher maybe playing it up a little bit?
It's a one-goal game, late in the game, and many a times a call that you get in the first couple of minutes of a game is different than the call you'll get in the last couple of minutes of a game, especially a one-goal game, and you know that.
That seemed like a cheap shot, though, because he was trying to skate away. Then all of a sudden he gets punched by the back of the head by a goalie. Then he gets roughed up by a defenseman when he's trying to skate up to get onside.
And how much time was left on the clock?
There's about under a minute.
So, exactly. So I think for them to call that in a one-goal game, are they taking away a scoring chance? Possibly, because they're holding him and they have to wait until he clears the zone to bring the puck in. Unless it's taken away a scoring chance the last minute in a one-goal game, you do not make that call.
The last minute is kind of prison rules, right? So the goalie punching him in the back of the head, that one's maybe iffy. The other one, you know, did he sell it a little bit? Probably. He's a pretty small guy, too, and I think it was Stewart or whoever got in front of him, big D-man, but it's a tough one. Like you say, it's in the last minute, so you're probably not going to get that call, especially when you embellish a little bit.
No, well, Montreal obviously got to be furious. It looked like to me that Gallagher wasn't, and that's just me. Maybe I got sympathy for the smaller guys, but I'm just saying.
Well, everybody's small in Montreal, though.
Yeah,
that's true. When Briere seems to be one of your bigger guys, you got an issue.
You know, and that's the problem with the Canadians. I think that they should treat him like an amusement ride on their dressing room door. You have to be this tall to play off for this team, and the Canadians are just way too small.
All right, guys, we're going to take another timeout. When we come back, we got Lloydminster's favorite game, over under, next.